So our second poet that we are just honored to have speak tonight is Dorothy Trogdon, who is reading from her third book, which is Tall Woman Looking.
Thank you, Jenny, for providing this wonderful place for all kinds of writers to come and be heard. It's a great blessing to our community, what you do. And thank you, Linda. I love your work, and I can't wait to see the book, so that's great. I too must mention Kathleen Flanagan, because the poet laureate of Washington State, because she put together a manuscript of my poems and did a beautiful job. And so my concluding comment about all that is, never think you are alone, because the great web of life holds and lifts us all. Yesterday was Shakespeare's birthday, and my father was an English professor in Maine, and he taught Shakespeare, among others, Wordsworth, Hardy. And so I'd like to start with a poem this also is gardening season. As you know, everything is coming alive and blooming, so I'm going to start with a poem called Festiva Maxima. Festiva Maxima is a kind of peony, and many of you gardeners would know it. It has a big white head with little crimson streaks in it. It's quite magnificent. And when I was a child, we had them in our yard. Festiva Maxima. In May, when marbled balls of the peony buds are poised atop their long red stems before they explode in a burst of petals, I remember the row of Festiva Maxima lining the walk between house and garage when I was a child in Maine. By June, they wore heavy tousled heads of snowy feathers splashed sparingly with strokes of startling crimson. And I think of my father striding past them, vanishing into his other existence, a classroom of strangers studying Shakespeare. For what can the child really know of the man who fathered her, whose secret life is as close to her as a peony bud in May? Beloved enigma, lodestar indwelling, wearing your Harris tweed, what stirred in your heart when you laid your hand so gently on my hair? And of course that leads to more remembering. And so the name of my book is Tall Woman Looking. When a few years ago, Bill and I went back to Maine and drove by the house where I grew up. And as we paused, a man came out of the house next door and came down to the sidewalk and to kind of greet us. And I thought I knew him, that he had been a child when I was in college and away a lot. And it was true, and we embraced each other, and he said, well, come on in. So I went in, and it was so spooky because it had been so long since I had been there. My parents had been gone many, many years. And I stood at a window looking across the yard at the house next door. So this is Tall Woman Looking, which is where the title of the book comes from. I stand at a window looking across the grass to the house where I lived as a child, and it matches my memory exactly. Brown shingle siding, blue hydrangeas, and in the yard an old birch tree hammered by a woodpecker every April. Then the clack-clack of my father's typing, a hiss of steam from my mother's iron. I hear them. And I see in his room upstairs my brother bent over an airplane kit of tissue and balsa. How heedlessly, how blithely I fled those safe and quiet waters when the time came to go. Now I think of that skinny, long-legged, brown-eyed girl, of the happy life she led there, the years of my own irreplaceable childhood, hopscotch, Sunday night waffles, new skates for Christmas, and my heart stakes its claim. I shall mine that stream bed as long as I live. The Greek goddess of memory has a really impressive name. Mnemosyne, and it's spelled with a capital M, but it's a fascinating name. So I was thinking more about memory. It's still a mystery, I think, despite science. I think there's still much we don't know. Two people can go to the same event and remember it entirely differently. So what goes on? Under this gray thatch, beneath the bone arc of skull, motherboard of memory, microscopic labyrinth of perceptions, what I have seen, learned, what cracked me open and made me bleed and sing, dances on a string of synapses, secure from erasure yet a while. And if you were with me when whatever happened, happened, I live in the image maze of your remembering as you do in mine, ripe plums falling into our open hands. What is the mind but a storehouse? Did you once before watch such a bird hover over the face of a flower? What is the mind but a storehouse of images? Look and remember, look longer, note every small thing. How the wings beat so quickly they're only a blur, the white band at the neck like a clerical collar, such tiny claws. There was a day when a man brought stones, long bones of his hands, holding a geode. That too I will never forget. I majored in history of art in college, and I've written a lot of poems about artists. All my life, I love going to museums, looking at art, thinking about artists' lives. And you're all familiar with Georgia O'Keeffe. So I thought that would be a good one to include because you would know what her work is like. And you know, her work was first shown by Stieglitz in New York, the photographer, and he wanted to own her, really. But she was a pretty independent woman in the end. So this is called O'Keeffe. He would, she could see, own her art as well as her slender body, if she let him. His adoration more than an encumbrance, a corral in which to tame her fire. Teach me the tools, she said, then I will make with them what I choose. And she rode out beyond the fences, color her language, the sweep of barren landscape her solace. We live in a beautiful place. I think of it every day, how remarkable this island is, how beautiful, how nourishing. And I love the alders. Some people call alders trash trees. They're not to me. I just think they're wonderful. They change season. Right now they have new little green all over them. So this is a tribute to the alders called The Patience of Alders in Winter. Like a chorus of slender girls in simple gray gowns, they stand along the roadway that leads to the beach, their shifts embroidered with lichens. Unashamed to be leafless, they have no desires, wait patiently under changing skies, accepting equally cold rain, warm strokes of sunlight. Each day I look to them, comforted by their constant presence, their somber grace, even as a merciless wind comes to take one down. Mm-hmm.